In the summer of 1926, the residents of Braxton County welcomed a traveling carnival that promised thrills and chills like nothing they'd ever seen before. Among the usual tents and games, one ride stood out, a towering Ferris wheel constructed from rusted metal and faded paint. But it wasn't just its decrepit state that caught people's attention. It was the ride's operator, a man dressed in a tattered ringmaster's coat, whose face seemed more mask than skin. As the wheel creaked to life, something strange happened. Those who entered the ride never came down. One by one, passengers would disappear, their gondolas empty the next time the wheel made its slow rotation. Screams echoed from the top, where the seats vanished into the clouds. No one could explain what was happening, but those who got off swore they felt the icy grip of invisible hands around their necks as they descended. And then, just as mysteriously as it arrived, the carnival vanished. The townsfolk awoke to an empty field, save for the Ferris wheel. It stood silent and unmoving, as if it had never been touched by human hands. To this day, they say if you listen closely at night, you can hear the creaking of its rusted metal and the distant screams of those who never returned. In the summer of 1984, a carnival set up camp just outside the bustling suburbs of Westchester. Amid the neon lights and electronic music, one attraction drew curious eyes: the Mirror Maze. It wasn't like any other mirror house the locals had seen. It seemed endless, the reflective corridors twisting and turning in impossible ways. Jesse, a 17-year-old thrill-seeker, decided to enter on a dare, eager to prove it was just another harmless attraction. At first, the mirrors were normal, her reflection staring back with every step. But soon, the reflections began to change. Jessie noticed her face in the glass wasn't quite right. Her eyes moved a fraction of a second too late. Her mouth smiled when she didn't. And then, as she turned a corner, her reflection didn't turn with her. Suddenly, she realized she wasn't alone. Her reflection, now grinning maniacally, began to move closer, stepping out from the glass. Jessie panicked, running through the maze, but every mirror showed the same thing. Her reflection was always one step behind, its cold, dead eyes watching her every move. The exit was nowhere to be found. It was as if the maze had swallowed her whole. Her friends returned the next morning to find the maze cordoned off by police. Jessie was found curled up in the center, staring blankly into one of the mirrors, her mind lost to the maze. But when they looked into the glass, it wasn't Jessie staring back. It was something far darker, far colder, and it was still grinning. In a quiet town where nothing ever seems to change, a familiar carnival arrived for the first time in a decade. Among its rides was an old-fashioned carousel, the kind with wooden horses, chipped paint, and an eerie melody that seemed to echo from a distant time. People remembered it well. The Carousel of Shadows, they called it. Legend said that once you got on, you might never be the same again. A group of friends, drawn by curiosity, decides to ride the carousel one night after the carnival has closed. They sneaked in after hours, the carnival grounds empty, except for the slow, haunting melody of the carousel. As they climbed onto the weathered horses, the ride began on its own, the music growing louder, faster. But something was wrong. The horses' eyes glowed red, their once stationary heads turned to follow the riders. The carnival lights flickered, and shadows seemed to emerge from the darkened tents, creeping closer. One by one, the friends vanished as the ride spun faster, swallowed by the shadows that danced around the carousel. Those who tried to jump off found themselves right back on their horses, as if the ride wouldn't let them leave. The shadows took them, their screams swallowed by the sinister melody. By morning, the carousel stood still, empty except for the faint echo of laughter from deep within the shadows. And when the town woke, the carnival was gone, leaving nothing but an empty field. But sometimes, on quiet nights, locals swear they can still hear the eerie melody, a ghostly reminder of the carousel of shadows and the souls it claimed.